This chart shows the highest amount of NFL receiving touchdowns from a single player in each season. This chart goes from the year 1932 to 2019. It was made using existential research and Wikipedia articles. The orange line describes the average amount of receiving touchdowns that the guy with the most receiving touchdowns that season had, being 13. It's weird, but it makes sense. The stats started being recorded in 1932, and the NFL was young at the time, and then it gradually started getting way better. And then it exploded. Welcome to the age of Don Hutson. Don Hutson played for the Green Bay Packers the 10 years of his career. Even though he's one of the greatest football players in history, he always had a scared face every time he caught the ball. He looked like a man who really did not want to be tackled. This chart is every player with more than 48 receiving touchdowns in their career. We can see some incredible players here, but at the very top is Don Hutson with almost 100 receiving touchdowns. After the incredible feat of Don Hutson, no one even came close to getting his record for 8 years, and then 9 years later, it happened again. However, the guy who did this is very confusing. Elroy Hirsch was a normal player with not a lot to his name. He did get into the Hall of Fame and got a few Pro Bowls, but he wasn't amazing. This season came out of nowhere. He was doing at best 7 receiving touchdowns a season, and then he exploded to 17 of them in one season. And he never got even half of that ever again. Even though the NFL was getting better, there were still some problems. From 1961 to 1983, the line never went above the average or only went above by 1 touchdown. Some of the greatest athletes we know of lived their entire career of sports in this time frame. It's really sad to see so many seasons barely slip through the margin. I consider this part the drought. However, it doesn't mean there weren't good players. Trust me when I say this, one player in this time frame defied sports. Bob Hayes had the nickname Bullet Bob, and for very good reason. Before Bob played in the NFL, he was an Olympic runner. He was so fast that he drilled through the competition and easily won the gold medal. That in itself was already an incredible achievement that few people have done, but he went to the Dallas Cowboys and won the Super Bowl 8 years later. As of right now, he is the only person in history to win an Olympic gold medal and win a Super Bowl championship. As the drought went on, wide receivers and tight ends were trying to break the plane, and nothing came out of it. It seemed like it would last forever. Then out of nowhere, we went sky high. The plane had been broken to a point of no return, and it was all done by one guy. 22 receiving touchdowns alone is already insanity, but before this, no one had even gotten close to 20. The highest anyone had gone was 17, and then this one guy blew them all away like they were nothing. This is the chart from earlier about career receiving touchdowns, but now it is all the way to 2020. Near the bottom, we get some pretty good receivers doing about 63 receiving touchdowns in their career. As we go up, though, we start seeing Hall of Famers and incredible wide receivers. And then you get to the top. And at the very top, a receiver did 197 receiving touchdowns. This alone is absolutely incredible. This first played lead is one of the biggest outliers in football. I decided to do the math and found out that the difference between first and fourth is the same as fourth to the last number on this chart. What kind of player could achieve something this extraordinary? Welcome to the age of Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice did something that almost no NFL player has ever done. He excelled far above his competitors. Jerry had single-handedly destroyed the competition in both receiving touchdowns and receiving yards. If you look at the first 60 receiving yards leaders, no one is even close to catching up to the 22,895 receiving yards in his career. To put this into perspective, here is a line 22,895 yards long. This line doesn't seem too long until you realize that this line could go over the entirety of Galesville, Wisconsin. Before Jerry Rice took over, there was something that happened in the year 1982. The highest amount of receiving touchdowns was a low 9. To put this in perspective, this hasn't happened since 1958. It's already weird because there were still many talents that year. The 2020 NFL receiving leaders were far above anyone in the 1982 receiving leaders. Wes Chandler was the leader in both receiving yards and receiving touchdowns that year, but he only went to 4 Pro Bowls and got 1 Super Bowl win. Jerry Rice will never be forgotten, and the impact he made on football is incredible. As the age of Jerry Rice died down and ended, no one came close to beating it. But then, Randy Moss is truly one of a kind. He changed the way we see wide receivers, and just like Jerry Rice, excelled beyond his competitors. He is in 3rd place for most years of being the leader in receiving touchdowns. I like to call this part of the chart Randy Moss, the protege. His career was just as astounding as Jerry Rice. He had 9 seasons with 10 receiving touchdowns or more and became one of the greatest rookies in NFL history. Randy Moss even excelled on humor and managed to entertain his viewers as well as send a message to his rivals.
This is in for a touchdown.
Oh, Al Harris playing off, bit up on the route, and Randy Moss, without even really being able to run, as he shoots the moon to the fans here in Green Bay.
That is a disgusting act by Randy Moss. And it's unfortunate that we had that on our air live. That is disgusting by Randy Moss.
Well, let's get back to the play. Randy Moss, I don't even think that was called in the huddle. You see him start to the slant. Al Harris jumps it. He gives him the hand. Dante Culpepper, fortunately, sees what Randy Moss is wanting to do.